So I wanted to invite up Bridget Mooney. She's a new person, new-ish to our church, and new to our little group as well, our little SOPO group. So I've just observed Bridget jumping in, loving people well, offering hospitality, and also taking risks in using her gifts, and it's been cool. So I just asked her to share just a little bit of her experience in our community over this past year.
All right, so it's dangerous when you invite a pastor's kid to the mic. You don't know what might happen. My nerves don't come from public speaking. I love public speaking. My nerves come from how do I not public speak too much. So
that's why I'm staying up here. So.
Exactly. I told Ben
we'll invite the worship team can make their way up as well. No, seriously.
I told Ben when he asked me, I was like, you might need to play that like Oscars music that cuts me off at some point. So
yeah, serious worship team, you can start making it. I'm being serious. Where are they? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
So I've been coming to Tallgrass at the Well for about a year now. With my family. There's my husband Josh and my daughter Amelia or Allie, as she goes by. So I will try to make sure I make the distinction between my husband Josh and the pastor Josh. But it's funny because I actually met Ben and Maris at yoga a few weeks before that, before we started coming, and I think it was the first time Ben had ever been to yoga.
That's not true.
And then I showed up, and Maris was here, and she remembered me. And so I went to pizza with the pastors. And from my viewpoint, at least, I really grilled Ben, Josh, and Sarah about things, and they didn't even flinch. And then all these little connections and commonalities just started to emerge after that. It turns out that we have some mutual friends or contacts that we've talked about, I started talking to someone about Allie and how her birthday was coming up, and they were like, oh, my niece has the exact same birthday, and it turns out they're like a half hour apart or something like that, which is crazy. But I really like what I would call the ecumenicism. I admire the merger of the churches. I grew up as a Methodist/Presbyterian pastor's kid, and the church that my mom's family went to for generations is called Maine Federated Church, which is in Maine, New York, which is not at all confusing. But their story was like back in the 1800s, two of the churches were there in town, and one of them had a fire, and the church burned down, so the other church invited them to worship, and they loved each other so much they just never left. So when I saw what the churches were doing, I just thought that was really cool, because it kind of echoed some of my own story and my own family's history. We did alternate between here and another church for a while. And I'd miss this community a little more every time we were at the other church. When you talk about offering hospitality to one another without grumbling, I feel like this community has that strength and fellowship. And not only that, but this community respects boundaries, and I think that's huge. No one rushed at me once they found out I worked with kids, pushing me to serve in that capacity in any way. No one said, hey, you're a helpful person, work the sound booth, which is a terrible idea. Never asked me to work the sound booth. People wanted to get to know me and my family first, and when I was gone the entire summer for a book study but wanted to come to the last meal event, Jen Gelder and Edie said, of course, and then they all listened to me drone on about my experience living in intentional community. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks with the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with strength God provides. And I connected that to, this is an emotionally safe community. You can tell a lot of intentional work has gone into that at an individual and at a community level. An openness about where we stand with room to acknowledge hurts and differences. I really liked, there was a sermon where Pastor Sarah invited us to stay and to wrestle, that we could deconstruct, but then to stay with the community while we reconstruct, and that the community would hold space for that. I remember when Pastor Josh preached on men and women in the church, and I immediately cringed when I heard that topic, but he paused to say something like, I know these verses, I think they were the verses from like 1 Timothy, have been used as a weapon against women to subjugate and to silence, and I want to say that I'm sorry. And I'd been in a huddled down, fist clenched position anytime someone from the church mentioned that topic or those verses, and I have a lot of baggage surrounding that issue, and when he said that, I kind of felt myself uncurl a little bit. As a pastor's kid and someone who once felt called to be a pastor, moreover, simply as a woman, the treatment of women in the church is important to me. And now it's crucial because I want my daughter to see how mutuality can be lived out in a holy and a healthy way. I love the way this community has loved her. I see the intentionality and work put into the children's program here, how their physical and emotional safety is valued. She was delayed in talking when we first came, and nobody pushed her on that or asked, what's wrong with her, why won't she talk to me? She's a very typical COVID kid, and so she would not separate from me in the nursery, so I was like the third nursery volunteer for about a month. And Jen and Morgan and the other volunteers just took that completely in stride, and she thrives here now. She talks about, I tell her it's Sunday and we're going to church, and she's like, there'd be snacks, and we have a story, and we see friends, and I'm like, and we learn about Jesus. And she's like, yeah, we learned about Jesus, but about the snacks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will, am I doing okay on time?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. And I'll try not to get emotional during this part. But 4 months ago to the day, I was packing Allie up to go to small group, and I got a really life-altering phone call. My dad died of a heart attack. This is utterly shocking to anyone who knew my father. He hiked 9 miles a day. He was getting ready to hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And there was just no indication that this was coming. And this is all the more devastating to me because I'm an only child, and I lost my mom when I was a kid. And so much of my church experience and experience in church community is connected to my father because of what he did as a pastor and as a hospital chaplain. And I love the way that this new community has loved us through that event and through that grief. Ben and Maris reached out to me immediately because I texted and say, I can't make it to small group. Emma gave me a meal, or gave me a gift card for a meal. Jenny and John had our family over for dinner when we got back from 10 days in Pennsylvania taking care of things. The entire small group sent us flowers 6 weeks after, which is Ben remembered. I told him that was when I was going to need support because that's when I knew that support tended to fade. Alicia Hilgeist comes up and asks me how I am just about every Sunday, and she really wants to know. Amanda Braun and her boys, even though she's relatively new here, they did play dates with us over the summer, which gave us a sense of normalcy. Misty gave me a standing offer of, if you need to get out and go somewhere, just let me know. And Judy asked me questions about my dad's life as she cut my hair. And it's amazing to me that a new church community would do this for my family because I think I've easily been in a place where I say, I don't know that person and I don't want to step on their grief. And I just kind of freeze and I don't do anything. And you guys haven't done that at all. You've all used your gifts in different ways to help our family through this. And I can't say thank you enough for that.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. We'll give it up for Bridget. Hey, thank you, Bridget. I appreciate it. That's cool.